most organizations think of themselves as having a certain amount of resource. That's that box on the left. And if you take that resource, most organizations think that they're using all of it pretty much to run the business, or pretty close to all of it. And then they lay on top of it, well, here we need some other things to close the gap, the thing that the strategy just said we need to do. And so you end up with more to do than you can do, because you're trying to run the business and change it at the same time. This is the way it looks to most organizations. So the natural thinking is, well, I need more resource to do this. However, research shows that in most organizations, and in my experience in working with hundreds of organizations, it's not true. And the research shows that in the typical organization, about 35–37% of all activities are not really connected to the purpose of the organization, to the strategy. The question is, where is it? Where do you find that wasted activity? And it's not easy to find. But if you assume it's there, one approach for addressing it is to displace it. Since you can't find it, you take a different strategy, which is to decide what's really critical for your new strategy, and you make that important enough that it pushes aside the lower priority items. We call this the displacement approach in managing your resources. And so I can illustrate the power of this, so many different stories of my own experience, but I'll pick one from a screw manufacturer that we worked with during the last downturn of 2007, 2008, that time period. And if you think about being in construction, what a horrendous industry to be in during that downturn. And this organization analyzed all of the things they were doing with this waste in mind, and they figured out the majority of their products were not really contributing to their bottom line, and they figured out the majority of their customers weren't contributing to their bottom line. And so they started to systematically put more emphasis on their profitable product lines and their profitable customer relationships, and gradually over time weeded those things out. And an amazing thing happened. During this downturn, 2008, 9, 10, they grew 50%, and they didn't have to increase their headcount one iota. And I can tell you story after story of uncovering, hey, we had a whole lot more resource here that could be better used than we were using it. It's there to be found. And so I want to finish with this thought that there was a guy who wrote a book years ago, Fred Brooks, about large-scale technology products, and he made this quote. He said, "Adding manpower to a late project makes it later." And that's the point we want to make, that the second performance driver that we're covering today is that the ability to allocate resources to higher value activities is one of the key capabilities that will allow you to perform better.